what's going on, everyone? It is Chris, and welcome back to once again another episode of Madden Maniac Previews. I had to wait so long to record this because these two teams, the Bengals and the Cowboys, are playing as of the day I'm recording this, which is Monday when this should go up, or is Sunday rather that I'm recording this. Yeah. The Bengals finished up. The Cowboys are actually just getting started, but I'm just gonna hope that nothing serious happens. If not, I'll get notifications. I'll keep my Twitter feed open, and we'll get into all that nonsense as we go along here. So let us just go right ahead and get right into this thing. And I think that the connection between these two teams will be a little bit different than what you'd expect right now. At least what I'm seeing at the moment. I have to, once I get into the analysis, I'll probably be able to make a bit bigger connection. But the thing about both of these teams, they have coaches that have failed expectations in terms of winning the Super Bowls in very soon after their hires, or within 5 years of their hire. Neither of them have won a Super Bowl. They've made it to the playoffs plenty of times, each of them, but they have not made it quite yet. And as we get kickoff underway, it is time to discuss our Bengal team, our Cincinnati Bengal team here, and obviously I'm talking Marvin Lewis is the longest tenured head coach right now without a Super Bowl, and the second longest tenured head coach overall. He's been in this job since, I believe, 2003 or 2000. Yeah, either 2002 or 2003. Regardless, that is almost 15 years on this team, and that's kind of absurd. And it's definitely an interesting strategy because by now other franchises would get impatient and would have fired their head coach by now. But I find it very fascinating that Mike Brown has just over and over again said, you know what, it's time. Let's give him another shot. Let's do another year with this guy. And I just wonder why that is the case. Like, why do they keep on bringing him back? And I know they've had years and years where he made it to the playoffs, but there hasn't been a single playoff win. They made it, but they never actually won when it mattered. And I get it; it's really hard to win the playoffs. And I think that sometimes that's an overrated statistic. But when you've been in the job for 15 years with 0 playoff wins, despite all the appearances, then the microscope gets a little bit bigger on those statistics. And I think that them keeping Marvin Lewis yet another year might come back to bite them. It may not completely hurt this team, but it's certainly one of those things that you just kind of scratch your head at, especially with all the rumors that are coming out at the end of the last season that we were nearing the end of Marvin Lewis era, like everything was going to be coming to the end, and we were all just going to move on, move forward, whatever, and they'll get a new coach, or that it was even be rumored that he was going to be in an advisory position, like he wouldn't even leave the franchise, he would just take on a different role, but it just ended up being like, all right, well, that last few game stretch that they had, where they beat contending teams, there's hope. There's hope that existed, and I guess that was their justification for keeping him around. I think that those wins ended up coming up essentially around the time where it was kind of being like, oh yeah, he's nearing the end. He's almost done. He's that there's gonna be no more Marvin Lewis as the Bengals head coach after 2017. Well, here we are. Let's talk Andy Dalton. He's been a middle-of-the-line quarterback for quite a few years, but I feel like in recent times, and I know that a lot of people, are just always going to see him as like a middle-of-the-line quarterback because of his history of being part of this organization and being part of the Choke Artists team. But I think in recent times, despite the team not doing too well, especially last year having one of the worst offenses in the league, he didn't do too bad. I think a lot of it was the offensive power around him, especially the offensive line kind of being not 100%. He did not play too bad. I don't think that he is that bad of a quarterback. Definitely, if he's not mediocre, then or if he's not outstanding, he's in the middle of the line. Not great, not good, but not bad. And I don't know. I like him, I think, in the last few years more than I had in maybe his more recent careers, at least the reputation that he had in the recent times. So I don't see that happening. I don't see him having like this huge drop off this year, because I think that he's going to end up improving because of the talent that's around him this year. So let's look at that. First of all, you have running back in Joe Mixon and Giovanni Bernard. Now, Joe Mixon's going to be the main starter. He hasn't really looked that great going thus far. There's a lot of hope around him. He a lot of talent that people want to tout on him. I'm still a little skeptical about him generally. Not even about just his past, but his play on the field as well. I haven't really gotten into that Joe Mixon hype train. But maybe he'll prove me wrong come the regular season. So that running game, I think there's still like a little bit of questions, but it's preseason. Not everything's gonna be showing up right now. So maybe they'll prove that'll end up proving to work out for them. And Giovanni Bernard as the backup, and he has been for kind of some time, but I think he's gonna end up losing carries this year, because he's kind of like when Jeremy Hill was there, they kind of like went back and forth. I think this year he's probably gonna remain as a backup more than anything, especially if this team's gonna remain as high on Mixon as they have been. And of course, your biggest playmaker, most important playmaker on this team is AJ Green. And I think he's also another one that, despite the badness around the teams, he hasn't performed terribly. There's been times that he's injured, and there's times where you wish his productivity was a little bit better. But again, I think that he is a product of the system that's that was set up last year, and it wasn't really working out. I think he's due for another breakout year. He's one of the biggest playmakers in the league. He is able to go up and catch any ball that comes his way. He's really, really good, and I think that he is going to have another good year. I don't see anything that would drop him off. I think he's going to have some people around him to help him out. First of all, Tyler Eifert's also going to be back, and I hope that he is healthy, because it's a shame that he hasn't been healthy to this point, but it is just this constant cycle of like what ifs with him. If worse comes to worse, you do have Tyler Kroft potentially as a backup, but that tight end group is just not right now deep. But what you do have is they have Tyler Boyd from last year, the hero of that Bengals Ravens game. I think he gets. By the way, that play, I understand that Andy Dalton gets all the credit for it, and that's fine. But Tyler Boyd had to run it down the field a little bit of ways, and he had to dodge a few defenders along the way as well. He got a good amount of speed there. Andy Dalton, he had to escape some defenders in his way. I'm not going to take credit away from him. I just think Boyd should get just a tiny bit more credit. So I think he'll have he has a decent year ahead of him, but I think competing against him will be a John Ross as well. And remember with John Ross, he was the one that broke the record for the quickest 40 time in the history of the NFL Combine, and then went on to have 0 receptions all year round. So everyone immediately labels him a bust because he hit such a high expectation early on, and then completely bombed the first season. I would hold that thought though, because as of today, after watching the Bengals game, I think there's hope. He caught a deep ball about 50 yards, going towards the touchdown, going towards the red zone, going towards the end zone rather, and went on to just dodge, weave defenders right near the goal line. Almost like he was just pausing and standing in place and just like jerking his legs and hips back and forth for a second, because there's all these Bills defenders that are trying to tackle them. And then all of a sudden he just found the hole and just zoomed right into the end zone. It was beautiful. It was one of the coolest plays to watch this preseason, for sure. And I think that made me like, all right, I'm high on this guy. I like this guy. I want him to succeed, because you don't want this. He generated so much hype last year, and you don't want him just to be like, oh, well, then, then he went on to fail. The Bengals, they bought into the hype way too soon, and they're going to pay for it. No. I think the teams that they're going to face that are going to have to deal with John Ross are going to pay for it. I really think he's going to have a big year, and I think that play definitely demonstrated what he is capable of, his elusive ways, I guess you could call it. And if I had to say anything right now in terms of what I'm worried about with the Bengals, it's the offensive line. That was the concern last year, and it's still a concern. You do have Cordy Glenn, although he went down with injury today, so I don't know what the status is with him right now. If he could play, he could do pretty well. But then you have Clint Boyling, Billy Price, who is a first-round draft pick, so you never know. His development could get there. Bobby Hart, who did not really succeed that well with the Giants, and Trey Hopkins, who I'm not even sure who that is. There's a lot of names there that I am not comfortable with, and I think that's going to be what the Bengals team has to prepare for. They have to prepare for not having that sufficient offensive line, which might contribute to Joe Mixon not having that great of a year to start out, or Bernard or whoever who's in the backfield. So, and especially if you care about keeping your quarterback, standing up. Right now, your backup is Matt Barkley. I mean, it's a little rough. Gotta say, it's a little bit difficult to defend that right now. So you gotta be able to. You're gonna hope that they could be brick walls, and they can keep the plays going and not have it be the reason that the Bengals fall apart constantly. I will say this though. We'll flip now to the other side of the line for the Bengals. I think that defensive line is gonna wreck ship. Like, if that's gonna be where you're gonna win games right there. The combination still of Geno Atkins and Carlos Dunlap, which is stunning to me that they came from the same draft class, and arguably Geno Atkins, who was drafted 2 rounds later, is the better player of the two. They are so much fun to watch, and they just destroy opponents. They destroy the Bills' offensive line, which, granted, the Bills' offensive line this year is atrocious. But it doesn't mean that the talent on the Bengals' defensive line is at all minimized. If they could destroy Bills players with ease, they could probably destroy other players in the league as well. And they could put up a fight, and they've shown, at least those two have. You have Andrew Billings and Michael Johnson around it, and you do have Sam Hubbard, who I remember watching him with Ohio State, and boy oh boy, he would be one of those guys that was like, oh, you're having a good football game. Well, Sam Hubbard has something to say about that. And he's just there, and he's destroying the quarterback, and you're like, all right, well, guess my life's over. He's backing up Dunlap right now, but I don't know if he's comfortable with it. I don't see why he could not overtake Michael Johnson for a starting position. But we'll see. In the middle of the pack, middle of the linebacking core, obviously you have Princeton Brown, who's undrafted from Buffalo, but not undrafted, unrestricted free agent rather. But you have Vontaze Burfict there, and he's your Pro Bowl guy. He's your best player. But here's the thing, and I thought about this recently. Vontaze Burfict is about to come back into the league. I don't know. Is he suspended? He might. I mean, I'm not I would not be surprised if he's suspended to start the year, because it almost feels like he always is. Let's see. Hold on. I want to look this up. I have time. I have time to kill here. But I'm almost certain that he may be suspended, or that he's... Yeah. Yep, he is suspended for the first 4 games due to a PED violation. So the dude's a problem child at this point. Like, he is... PED suspensions, like, awful players on the field, especially against the Steelers. The dude's insane. And how is he going to adapt to the helmet rule? Because we talked all offseason about the helmet rule, and that seems like it got fixed, by the way, which is good. But even with that being said, he has a tendency to play kind of dirty. And part of playing dirty is lowering the head and trying to get those players injured. And don't tell me that isn't the case. It most certainly is. Sometimes they're if not a majority of the time, NFL players are trying to get each other injured. Sometimes, and not a majority of them. I think there is, but I think there is a demon in the back of some of their minds. They're like, it wouldn't be a worse thing if I can get this player hurt, keep them off the field, Because we'll look at the Saints bounty scandal. Look at all those different things that have come out. Players wouldn't. They do. Some of them do genuinely feel bad, and they certainly exist out there. But there are some that don't mind hurting people. And Burfict, I think, is one of those players. He does not mind hurting people badly. And that helmet rule, I feel like, will be called on him at least once this season. I'm just surprised that the Cincinnati's so insistent of keeping him around. I get that he's a good player, but how many times are you going to tolerate the guy being out there for a few games, then hitting someone in absolutely uncalled for, in an uncalled for way, and then he's going to be out for a few games and then come back? How are you going to constantly go through that cycle? They have been going through that cycle since they brought him on, but come on, man. I am not a fan of it, and I think that this, if he does not have a good year and a clean year, should consider taking a step back and maybe getting rid of him. You could do better. You can absolutely do better. Also, and I know this one is for PED use. I mean, there's been a few guys that have been called out on that, have been suspended for that. Julian Edelman, for one. There's question as to whether or not the substance is clear that what they're taking is a PED in the eyes of the NFL. I don't know. It's that whole thing is a little confusing to me, but regardless, he got suspended and he's off the field yet again for the first 4 games. So that sucks. We'll go through those games in a second. And one of the most surprising things about just recently about this team is that they got rid of George Iloka, who was expected to start for his umpteenth year with this team. Like, he has been a member of the Bengals for so long, or at least it felt like that. He's been there since 2012, which is 6 seasons, and you always feel like he's going to be a name in the background for this team. But you know, it's weird that they got rid of him, but I guess it's because of who they have, uh, right there, ready to start, and that's Jesse Bates. So he is a rookie who's drafted in the second round from Wake Forest. And I'm guessing the Bengals were like, you know what? I think we could cut this guy. It's a cat. Like, he would have been cut probably later in the off season, if any, later in the preseason on the roster cut down day or whatever. They decided not to go with him. They're going to go with Bates. I think right now I like Trey Kirkpatrick and William Jackson as starting corners. I think that's going to be a pretty good unit. Not like the best in the league, but pretty good. But I do have questions about the secondary, or the safeties rather. The Sean Williams and Jesse Bates. You know, I'm not too familiar with Sean Williams as a player, and Jesse Bates right now. I think that it just amazes me that he's gonna go right into being a starter. I mean, he's a second round pick though, so who knows? I guess they just figured that Georgia Loca could just, they could cut him, and there'd be no issues there. So I don't know. That's going to be fascinating to see how those safeties play without a big veteran presence. I guess Sean Williams would be that because he's been in the league for 5 years now. I think Iloka could have probably started him for the first beginning of the season, and then maybe look for a trade partner or then cut him. I don't know. Maybe they just were like, we want to give you an opportunity to sign with a team to start out the season with. And that's why Iloka's now on the Vikings. So there you go. Very interesting. And that's, I think, concludes my, at least going through the roster for the Bengals. Let's go ahead and look up the schedule for this team. And now I know that they start out against the Indianapolis Colts, and they don't have to worry as much about their offensive line against the Colts. The Colts, we've talked about this before. I am very low on their defense this year because I just don't think there's a lot of depth there. I'm curious as to see how that defense handles an offense with Andrew Luck. I mean, I guess more of my question would be the offense against that Indianapolis has, because we don't really know what it looks like, since Andrew Luck has been away for so long. I'm curious how the Bengals prepare for that, and if they can actually get to Andrew Luck and just shut down the offense. And it's a very interesting game to start out the season, to be Andrew Luck's first team he faces after being off for essentially what feels like 2 years, or a year and a half. So very interesting. I'm having trouble finding the full schedule there. Where is it? Okay, here we go. So they face the Colts and the Ravens and the Panthers and the Falcons. That's your first four. That's what I mean with perfect. Like, you're missing out on 2 playoff teams plus 1 playoff contender. Or 2 playoff teams from last year and a playoff contender right out of the gate. Ravens, Panthers, Falcons. You don't have them. And against Andrew Luck and the Colts, you don't have him. And the linebacking core completely struggles without him. And then you have Dolphins, Steelers, Chiefs. Steelers are probably your toughest in that group. Buccaneers, that's not too bad. And then Saints, Ravens, then Browns, Broncos, then Chargers, Raiders. It seems like the whole schedule kind of goes back and forth between maybe 2 really difficult ones, 1 or 2 easy ones, then maybe 1 more hard one, then 1 easy one. So the Bengals don't really have a terrible stretch, although I do feel like that opening 4 games might be among their tougher stretches that they have to deal with, or at least week 2 to week 5, or maybe even week 6, because that's at least 4 playoff teams from last year, plus the Dolphins. that's difficult. Or in a playoff, or in a playoff contender with the Ravens and a Dolphin, and a Dolphin. So yeah, I am very curious as to see how the Bengals respond this year, and especially how Marvin Lewis responds to last year, because the last 2 years they've been a huge disappointments, not even made the playoffs, and they were on a good streak of time where they were making the playoffs every single season. So now you're entering your 2018 season, and you want to avoid having 3 straight years without a playoff berth. If that happens, I would think that Marvin Lewis would be out. God, who knows at this point with him. But if they do make the playoffs, I think a big part of what will keep him around is if they can win a fucking playoff game. That's been the question for years. But I truly think that at this point they have to make the playoffs, and they need at least one playoff win. If you can get both, you're in good hands. You're good. You shouldn't have to worry. But I don't think this is. A lot of people are hyped about this team, and they think that they could be playoff contenders. I'm not as much, and that's a shame because I think the Bengals, for a long period of time, have been my favorite AFC North team. Because you kind of want them to kind of get over that hump. You want them to finally. I mean, obviously, compare their troubles with the Browns, and it's not comparable. But at least the Bengals had been to the playoffs. They've been there, and they've gotten so close every single time. It's like just utter agony to try to just get it in there. Look at the Browns. They've not been in the playoffs since the early 2000s, and it's just every year is a disappointment at this point. Yeah, but like the Browns now with me, I feel like the Browns are my favorite AFC North team right now because I'm rooting for them, and I feel like they could be successful this year. The Bengals, I'm over it, and I'm very skeptical to see if they can actually do something this year. So I think there's just some depth issues overall, but I've been surprised before. All right, let's talk Cowboys. Oh, and I guess that will lead into the question: who do you think could make the playoffs this year between these two teams? It's a difficult one, but I would lean towards. I'd lean towards the Bengals actually, because I think the Bengals are in a not. It's a very similar reason to what we were talking about in the Texans Bears preview with Go Cubs. The Bears are in a much. The Cowboys are in a much deeper NFC compared to the AFC. You could probably easily make the playoffs in the AFC. So, Bengals, I'll go with them. The Cowboys, let's talk about them. Because, first of all, with Jason Garrett. He's been the coach of the team since 2010, I want to say. I'm probably getting that year wrong. But he's been in part of this team for well over 7 years now, or 7 to 8 years, and probably will end up surviving this season regardless of what happens, unless it's a real dumpster fire. He has a tendency to go back and forth between having a really good winning record, and maybe not having a kind of a shitty record, not really doing too well. This year in particular should be the year where they rebound and they have a great year, go to the playoffs, maybe make it to the NFC Championship game. Who knows? But I'm also curious about him being around still. Although, I guess granted, he actually has won games in the playoffs. They have actually gone far with him, so I guess it makes sense for him to stay around. And he's very likable to the players. It seems like the players are relatively close with him, outside of Des Bryant, having this rivalry with him, after he was cut. But I just think that yes, it's good that Jerry Jones is so close with him and they love him so much. But at some point, you would think that might want to spice things up a little bit. Make some changes, especially on the offensive corner and defensive corner. We all thought that those guys would at least be fired, and they haven't been. So they really want to stick with consistency, but is consistency really going to help them? Is the question. Let's talk about what they have on the roster right now. Dak Prescott, a guy that they drafted in the 4th round in 2016, and went on to have a magical season. Ended up dethroning Tony Romo and essentially kicking him to the broadcast booth. And he had what just seems to be just what could be the start of something amazing with this franchise, with them moving into this new rookie quarterback, and what this Dak Prescott era could bring. Who knows? But my big thing is with Dak, after what happened last year with him, he had a down year in his second year. Very inaccurate on passes. Overall, very concerned. But you go into 2018, you don't get much, many changes to the personnel staff. You would think that maybe within his 3rd year, he might be able to have like this great breakout. I'm not too sure, because yes, you have Ezekiel Elliott too, and we know he's gonna be a good player. He's been a good player ever since he's been at Ohio State. A lot of shit with him as well in terms of off the field stuff. A lot of questionable things. Luckily, nothing too bad this offseason, which could be good news for the Cowboys. But still, you're concerned about it. But he's a good player, and he will probably win a bunch of football games for them. But there's many positions on this offense that are lacking right now. And let's start with the wide receiver group. Not saying that this wide receiver group would have been great if Dez stayed there, but right now your head wide receivers are Allen Hurns, Terrence Williams, and Cole Beasley. Now, 2 of those guys have been around the Cowboys offense. They've been impact players for them. But neither of them have really been wide receiver ones. And a lot of times you would rely on your tight end and Jason Witten. Well, guess what? He's also in the broadcast booth. So who you have? Jeff Swam. What? You have Allen Hurns as what seems to be your wide receiver 1. Who I like Hurns. But considering what has happened, what happened like in the last few years, he's been he's had to deal with injuries, and he hasn't been amazing to the point where like he gets overtaken in the depth chart greatly in Jacksonville by like guys like Keelan Cole and Marquise Lee and all them. I think the one guy that you could definitely trust in the future is Michael Gallup. He seems like he's going to develop into being a really fun player to watch. He may end up becoming the wide receiver 1 as time goes on. But right now, this wide receiver group is just not looking good. And the offensive line, which is supposed to be your strong suit, you don't have to worry about, because Zach Martin's dealing with injuries. Tyron Smith is dealing with back issues. And most importantly, right now, your center, Travis, oh my god, I'm blanking on his last name. Oh, Travis Frederick. There you go. I kept on wanting to be like Travis Fitzpatrick, but I was just like, that does not sound right. Travis Frederick, unfortunately, is dealing with an autoimmune disease that might not be, that hopefully won't be anything fatal or anything that's going to cause him to miss long periods of time, but it might. It might keep him out for the season. There's concern there, and he's a really, really important piece. So you have to start a bunch of guys that you're not too comfortable with. Cameron Fleming, Connor Williams, who is a rookie, but like again, you don't know for sure what's going to be happening with him. You have Joe Looney starting at center right now. Lyle Collins at right tackle. He's been moving up and down the offensive line. We don't know where he ends up. You have all these guys. I think Damian Mama, which I don't even think that's correct right now. I don't remember seeing that in this the preseason game, but you are what's supposed to be the foundation of the Dallas Cowboys, the offensive line. There is concern there, and so I just I don't really know what to think about this unit. What will help this team, though, I think, is their growth on their defense, and let's talk about that. DeMarcus Lawrence, your franchise player, he had a great year last year, and I think he's going to continue to get better. And you got G.I. Ward, who I like from Illinois, in a trade, and he is going to be your starting defensive tackle. I think that makes a whole lot of sense. I really like him. Now I know that we're waiting for Taco Charlton to break out, and for him to get on the starting position. Right now, it doesn't look like that. It looks like Tyron Crawford is your starting right defensive end. But I think once Taco really develops, he was fun to watch in Michigan. He'll be fun to watch with the Cowboys. But I think right now DeMarcus Lawrence is going to be your anchor on the defensive line. But then you have an excellent linebacking core led by Jalen Smith, who is just an incredible breakout comeback season for him, and I cannot wait to see him do more in the future. Sean Lee is your veteran, the guy that you can always rely on to make big plays. Sean Lee is the guy. And then Lane Vander Esch, the guy that is the rookie, that is certainly going to be an impact player at some point for this team. It is going to be so much fun to see him play. I loved watching him at Boise State. It's going to be great to see him make an impact with the Cowboys. And then the secondary, which also has its questions. We don't really know, but Byron Jones, he's kind of shown on and off that he could be pretty good at cornerback. Chidobe Awuzie, I also really like. And so, I don't know. I think that the defense is going to make up for a lot of what the Cowboys lacking. And I know that a lot of people... Here's what's interesting. A lot of times when people analyze the Cowboys in the offseason, you think, well, their lack of depth is the defense. But almost every single season, the Cowboys come out on the field and their defense ends up being what makes them win games. They end up doing so well, and that's, I think, a credit to Ron Marinelli. But this year, they have a good plethora of defensive players. That defense can be fun. It's the big D. A good D and a big D. I like it. I like that. So, if there's anything that I can really put, hang my hat on that's not right turn. Yes, I am the one that made the Cowboys great. No, if there's anything that I would, what's the good metaphor, or overused terminology when analyzing things, what I could absolutely say that I'm confident in, and why I will die on this hill, is that if the Cowboys are going to have any success this year, it's going to be because Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott completely are the main reasons for that offense succeeding, and that defense as a whole. That defense is going to be good this year, regardless of how bad the record is. I think the defense will be good, and I think that will help the record not be shit. If I'm a Dallas fan, though, I am a little worried. I'm not thrilled with the offensive situation right now. And you do have kind of a tough schedule ahead. You have to face the Eagles twice, which is gonna be difficult because it's the fucking Eagles. They're now the Super Bowl champions, looking as deep as ever. Of course, you never know what kind of drop off would happen, but there's a chance. You also have to face the NFC South this year, the entirety of the NFC South, which means the Saints, the Panthers, the Falcons. And you have to go on the road for the Panthers and Falcons. By the way, that's fun, right? you have to follow them. You have to face the AFC South as a whole. That includes the Texans and the Jaguars, and even the Titans are going to be tough. Maybe even the Colts could be tough because of Andrew Luck being back. I'm not too high on the Colts as a whole, so you probably won't have to worry too much about that. Um, so to me, there's a lot. That's a lot. And you also you do have to face the Seahawks, which you might not have to worry too much about, but that's usually a very competitive game. That's worth worried about. There's also you have to face the Lions, which again, not terrible, but they might make a leap this year. You never know. It's not the best schedule. It's not the ideal schedule, and considering how deep this NFC is right now, the way that we're seeing it, it's gonna be tough for this team to make the playoffs as it stands. Which then begs the question, though, what will happen if that happen? What would happen if they don't make the playoffs? I don't think Jason Garrett gets fired because I think that Jerry Jones made it clear that he is going to be loyal to them. Well, does that matter? I mean, maybe. I don't really know Jerry Jones anymore. I'm done predicting him. He's the most unpredictable owner in the league, so I'm just gonna let him do his thing. My bet is though that Jason Garrett would stick around, especially if it's like the 8-8, 7-9, or even 9-7 season and they don't make the playoffs. It won't be the end of the world, you know. It's like, yeah, it won't be worth firing him. And again, like if you want to keep a happy locker room, I don't see why you wouldn't want to keep him around. I'm curious though to see if they think of a candidate, because if it's the Cowboys and they fire their head coach, they have to go big. They have to go all out. So you're probably gonna see like one of these like the big named they're gonna pull Sean Payton away from the Saints or whatever, or they're gonna get someone just to come over from Dallas. And everyone's gonna be like, Jesus Christ! They're like almost overcompensating at this point. But regardless, that's just hypothetical. But I don't think it's impossible to say the Cowboys they're not gonna have they're definitely not gonna have a good season. This is a team that time and time again always surprises me. The years that you think they're not gonna do well, they end up doing well. The years that you think, oh, this is gonna be a good year, they don't. They kind of fall on their face. But I think right now the way I feel is they'll get close. I don't think they'll make it to the playoffs. But they have the talent to build on. And a lot of the guys that they have around right now is a lot of young talent. They have a lot of young talent on this team. It's something that they can build on, where in 2019 they probably could have a successful year. And I should note this. The offensive line is not a terrible situation if you forget the injuries. Like if Zach Martin and Tyron Smith get healthy, and let's hope, and even if beyond just football, you hope that Travis Frederick gets better. Autoimmune diseases are the fucking worst, and you don't want to see anyone go through those. But if he comes back on the field early, those are your three core offensive line players that are going to be really good. They are always going to be good. They've always been good for that team. So that solid offensive line with the running back that you have, with the quarterback that hopefully will kind of channel 2016, then it's a good group. It's a good group. Wide receiver is just the big issue. Who's going to be your big playmaker? I argue could be Michael Gallup, but I don't know how many chances he's going to get this year. Yeah, we'll see. I remember Michael Gallup. I always, college football, it's so hard for me to watch and try to do scouting at the same time to kind of watch certain players, and because to me I end up just losing interest really quickly. I kind of like just watching the game and just breathing it all in at once. But with Michael Gallup, I remember watching him specifically in the first game of the season. And right out of the gate, the dude's, you can tell he's the number one wide receiver because he's the one that's almost always being targeted. Or if he doesn't even get the ball, he's always being talked about because he's doing something during that play that's really making the offense better. So that's why I've always liked Gallup. And and he played, in the bowl game. He had a big impact. Probably, I didn't watch the rest of the Colorado State season, but I'm sure he made a big impact. Why he got drafted, why people like him so much. I would be very, very interested in looking into looking him. Also, I just realized something. Did they make Dak Prescott white in this game? I just realized now. I don't know if it's just light skin or what's happening, but that looks kind of weird to me. It's like a little too light skinned to be Prescott. That's weird. That's a little weird. Also, no, that's weird. I don't know. All right, whatever. I'm just just something I'm noticing right now. Unless it's not Dak Prescott. But he is number 4 though, right, on the team. Ugh, God, Jesus, I don't know, man. What are you doing? What are you doing? But yeah, I think I'll stand with my connection between these two teams is that their head coaches are getting chance after chance to get their team to the Super Bowl, get their team to have success and breed success. I mean, it was just two years ago this Cowboys team was, the first number 1 overall seed in the NFC. And with the Bengals, it was only 3 years ago that they were in yet another wild card game where they lost again. But it was like their umpteenth time in a row that they were in it. These teams, they taste success. They get the taste of it. And then they just lose it. And it happens over and over again. So it's... I obviously more so the Bengals, because, the Cowboys have 5 fucking Super Bowls. Can't really feel too bad about the franchise. But they haven't been to a Super Bowl since the 90s, too. Which is something to also consider at the same time. But specifically with the head coaches, guys that feel like they've always been they've been in the league for a long time or been at their current positions anyway for a long time. I would really like to see. I would like to see one of them let's see them make their road. To the Super Bowl. Let's have them make that push. To glory for once, instead of them being constantly ridiculed, constantly beaten down. Because neither of them, they can't be that horrible of coaches if the franchises are keeping them around. Although Marvin Lewis, I know he has such a bad rap, but the Bengals have to be seeing something in him, right? They have to be seeing something in him that's to why they're keeping him around. And there are obviously the gaps that each of them have had in the past, but none of it has really hurt their reputation. And there's a reason why they are still respected, at least in the league circles, compared to how the public views them as being well, you guys suck for not being champions sooner, But we'll see. We'll see how this season plays out. I think the Bengals have the better shot to make the playoffs for the pure reason that they are going to be, that the AFC is not deep, so it'd be easier for them. But between the two teams, I don't think either of them will make it. But if I had to choose, I'd go Bengals. But the Cowboys, again, things can go their way because that's just this team. The way it is that they've constantly, no matter what they have on the roster, they somehow figure out a way to make it far, or make it deep into the season, or maybe even into the playoffs, and make a statement. You never know, though. It was fun. It was cool seeing a playoff game in Dallas 2 years ago. That was kind of cool. I don't know how long it was since I guess no, they did have it in 2014. But I guess I didn't really remember it too much. I remember specifically because I think it was just that particular game was just so hype because they were the first overall seed, and they were facing the Packers, who had just like fucking destroyed the Giants the week before, and it was A-Rod versus America's team. There's so much hype of it, and there was just something so cool about the atmosphere, and then it ended up being such a great fucking game. At least top 5 favorite playoff games since I started watching football. Easily. I think the Packers have a constant theme of being in really good playoff games, but that particular one was just excellent, especially with the Cowboys coming back and all that. It was cool. It was cool. Or was it? Yeah, no, it was the Cowboys coming back. So there it is. I think we're just waiting on one more kneel down here, and we will be closing out, shutting down. There you go. Perfect. All right. Well, that is your 2 teams. That's your previews for those two teams. Will legacies be patched up for either franchise? Will there be glory at the end for Garrett or for Lewis? We will see. 2018 around the corner very soon. And, oh, by the way, these were 2 teams that played each other in the preseason. So it's been weird how this has been working out so much, where the teams constantly are meeting each other. The teams that I have scheduled down are meeting each other in the preseason. This has happened at least like 3 times now, at least. Cowboys, Bengals. Oh, yeah, by the way, something I'm going to forget to bring up when the podcast starts, but it's so weird to me that the Bengals are facing the Colts in the last preseason week and then facing them week 1. Like, I get that the preseason week 4, like, you're going to be starting, like, sitting all your starters, and, like, no one that's playing in that game will be seeing action in week 1. But, like, the fuck? Like, it's just a weird scheduling conflict thing that happened there. I guess they were just, like, they ran out of teams to pair up, and they're like, alright, well, I guess Colts Bengals are going to be right here. I don't know. We don't have any other choice, so. Yeah. That was definitely one of, like, the last matchups they figured for week 1, probably. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. Be good to one another. Be kind to one another. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.